It says we are
Yep,
live.
I
There we
believe
go.
we are.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another Microsoft Unboxed podcast. This is number 8 in the barrel. I am your host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by.
David Allen, nice to see you folks out there today. You have kept up with us for 8. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we like you guys to come back every week as long as we have a podcast to talk about stuff with. This week we're going to be covering quite a bit actually. We'll try and do it within a timely manner. Again, wants to get you guys out and about for your weekend. We're going to be covering Blizzard, Activision Blizzard once again is making moves. This time they are promoting rather than laying off, but we'll get into the context of all of that. We'll be talking about a lot about the Vision Pro because review units have actually started being seeded to people uh, this week. Some people got it, YouTubers got it, and so we got early reviews. Normal people are getting their hands on it. I believe today. Today is
Yep, I
they're
saw that
actually
this
going off of
morning.
UPS trucks, and we'll be talking about all of that in the context of which bets are being made by which companies. A lot of them are betting on AI. It seems like Apple was betting on VR for some reason, but we'll get into that. We'll also be talking about a big thing that's happening with Windows on ARM. They're going to be getting Chrome, and why that's a big thing. If you're scratching your head and don't know about it, we're going to fill you in. Then we're going to get into Microsoft's earnings because it was earnings week. We're going to talk about the breakdowns of that, also the competitors, just a couple of them, Apple and Google, and how they compared. We're also going to be getting into Google is launching its own version of an AI image generator, AI generated image creator, and kind of what Microsoft had to come out and do in order to, or do and say, in order to kind of stem the tide with this Taylor Swift situation about deepfakes on X, formerly known as Twitter. And maybe we'll finish off the pod with just a couple of opinions on what we've seen as far as a review so far for the Vision Pro. So buckle in. Like I said, it's going to be a fun one. Get us started, David.
Well, I'm going to jump into something a little positive here. I know Blizzard and Activision have had quite a bit of negativity here over the last few weeks. There's been some layoffs, and we know we talked about it last week that we had 1,900 people laid off, roughly most of those in the Activision Blizzard arm, and we knew that they had said there would be a new president named within the week, and that has happened. And the president is a female. Her name is Johanna Ferris. I hope I am pronouncing her last name correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And she is taking office Monday. I believe Monday is the 5th. Let's see, third. Yeah, Monday is the 5th. She's officially taking office Monday, February 5th. She put out a little post, little email to the employees that said she is committed to doing everything she can to help Blizzard thrive with care and consideration for you and for our games. Each e- each unique and each unique and special in their own right. I'm optimistic about our ability to serve our current and future player communities and further amplify the shared passion for greatness, polish, and creativity mystery that is a hallmark of Blizzard's approach to game making. Next week, she says she will be in Irvine, California, and she's eager to meet with employees and meet with those concerned, and says she will be scheduling one-on-one meetings and meet and greets for those that are interested in getting to know what she's about and what her plans are. From what I read, folks, it seems like she's willing to go back and take Activision for what it is. The World of Warcrafts, the Call of Duties, the Overwatches, the things that really made Activision what it is. She seems like a gamer herself. She did go on in the post and mention that she is also a parent raising two sons of her own. So if she's still raising those kids, by the way it was worded in her post, maybe her kids are game players. So I'm thinking that she really might have an insight into gaming, what gamers are looking for, what gamers want, and maybe give Activision a nice little polish up and get things back on the right track for them, get things stabilized over there a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say to this. I just want to make sure that we get our audience informed. Yes, she's a female, but she's also no stranger to the company. She is
Yeah.
actually, or was, the what was she? She was the former head of Call of Duty and Overwatch. So, like to your point, she does have gaming experience, a lot of it, and she kind of knows at least what that category of a gamer likes. First-person shooter. She's helped to make Call of Duty, kind of the mega game that it is, and Overwatch as well. So again, we have someone with proven backgrounds, experience, and success. I think your mic's a little. We're getting your breathing in through the mic. Um, so yes, she's proven her commitment to the company already. As far as her coming into Irvine, I don't know if she lives outside of California, but those are where the studio is at. So again, maybe it's just another show of commitment coming in to the studio instead of remotely saying like, "Hey, everybody, this is me." She's gonna go maybe shake hands and see offices and pick her favorites. Who knows? But it's I think in your write up, it's been a bumpy 18 months. Hopefully, after unfortunately, after these mass layoffs, they can find their footing and stability, and perhaps maybe rehire some of these people now that they know what the new direction is. So we'll end on hopefully a hopeful note, an optimistic note. What's our next headline?
Well, let's jump into something a little bit about Apple here. I know we don't do a whole lot of Apple coverage, but I think this is worth mentioning because Apple and Microsoft are kind of tied in, as you mentioned in our opening statements. The Vision Pro is, as of today, coming off the shipping trucks, and Microsoft has said that the Microsoft 365 apps will be coming to your Apple Vision Pro for the 10 people that spent $3,500 on a VR headset. Um, Long story short, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but you're getting Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Loop, and Teams. Now, what really stood out for me here was the PowerPoint and Word, Excel were basically Apple Vision Pro is going to give you a larger workspace, an infinite canvas to move your spreadsheets around, to move your graphs around, to set up your presentation elements in PowerPoint, to collaborate in Word with multiple people. But really, what I think Vision Pro is going to do in terms of Microsoft products is Microsoft Teams. You can have your teammates up in your headset. You can share documents right inside of the headset according to the documentation. Now, I haven't tried out one of these. I don't intend to spend $3,500 on this headset, but for those that are doing it, I have a question. Is putting on a headset, I'm not going to go down a negative place for this. This is just a question. Is putting on a headset the way you want to be productive and the way you want to collaborate with your teammates? What makes you put that headset on versus like Kareem and I are doing here for the pod, looking at each other on the screen? I would love to hear some feedback from you Apple fans out there. What makes you choose to do this in a headset? It's nice that Microsoft has made it available, but there's a lot of things for products that are available. I want to know what makes you choose to use it.
Yeah, we'll get into that actually towards the end when we start going through the reviews because there is a fundamental disconnect between
That's what I'm
the
getting at.
solution of between the solution of video conferencing on this thing and video conferencing with kind of the peripherals that we have today. So we'll put a pin in that for right now. But yeah, I mean it for early adopters, it's great. It's good that Microsoft's getting out ahead of this in case this thing does become a hit. If it doesn't, then hey, it was a few hours or I mean, whoever, who knows, a few months wasted of development and maybe a couple $1 million for design and paychecks and all that stuff. But no sweat off of their back as a $3 trillion company. Better to be prepared than having maybe uh, Slack in there already developed and everyone getting used to that. So good on them. We'll see where it goes from there. What's our next topic?
Well, I'm going to say that this one is a big one for me, and I'll get into that in just a second. Google Chrome is now 100% ready for the ARM platform. Now, this is a big deal. When you first read this, maybe it's not a big deal, but this is big. We know that
Huge.
we know that the Surface 9 5G version that has been out for over a year now is an ARM-based CPU. We know that the ThinkPad X13, which I think you reviewed a while back,
Oh yeah. Hmm.
is also an ARM-based CPU. And so far, up until this become available, we had to depend on the translation layer for Windows on ARM to run things like Google. And if you have ever surfed on an ARM device with the x86 version of Google, it works. Is it fluid? Do all the extensions work? Is it battery efficient? Absolutely not. And that's where the big deal comes in. This is the efficient way of doing it. This is getting prepared for the new devices that OEMs are going to be coming out with later this year, powered by the new Qualcomm chips that I'm expecting everybody to come out with one of these. Now, there is one little caveat here. In order for this to work, you have to be at least on a Snapdragon 835 SoC. Now, for those of you that have listened to some of our previous podcasts, I reviewed one of my favorite tablets, two-in-one PC combos, the Robo Incala, which is based off of the SoC 830, I believe, and it did run on that device and does run well on that device. There is a noticeable difference right from the click of launch between the x86 version of Chrome and the ARM version of Chrome. Now, let me throw in one more caveat. The Chrome for ARM is still in the canary, it's still in the canary channel. It is not fully polished yet. Your icon is a little yellow in color to let you know the difference between the canary version and the x86 version when you've got the two side by side. I have used it ever since I posted the story here. Not seen any issues yet. Most of my extensions are working. I've not seen anything that said, "Hey, I've got to go back to the x86 version until they fix something." Everything's looking good so far.
Yeah, no, this we we were talking I think last week about Surface hardware and
Mhm.
some of the new stuff coming down the pipe. I'm not sure what the Surface Pro X updated version, the X2 ish, right before they did the full redesign and called it the Surface Pro 9 or whatnot.
Mhm.
I don't know what Snapdragon they're running on. I thought it was. I think they might be eligible for this to test this out. So for those of you who have it out there, let us know. But I think I was listening to Windows Central earlier today or yesterday, and they had mentioned that a lot of developers, a lot of companies may start taking Windows and ARM more seriously than they have in the past. And
So,
this is evident by Google jumping in because Google has kind of been staunch about not doing it. They didn't see the necessary market share for it. They didn't see the audience for it. They really didn't have to, because Microsoft's Edge wasn't pushing anybody off of their devices. Now, we did write a piece about Stat Counter where Microsoft Edge gained a couple points over this last month or whatever in January. I don't think it was to the detriment of Chrome. I just, they just happen to have more people using it at this point. Maybe they took away from old Edge, who knows? But either way, because of this new Snapdragon chip that's coming out, the Elite X, I believe, I think some developers are out there saying that this may be the tipping point. The translation layer has gotten better in Windows. There
It
still
has.
remains to be seen if it's at the point of uh, you know Apple's translation layer to that extent of efficiency, but it's gotten really good. It really just needed people to kind of come in with their apps. We're still waiting on Adobe to do it, but we know that I think it was at CES, was it that, or Elite? I think during the Elite X1 announcement, that DaVinci Resolve is going to, have their own native ARM development. So, when it comes to being able to have a device like the M1 or M2, where you can have a Surface Pro or Surface laptop and a Surface Pro 10 or whatever, fanless, running graphic intensive things like video editing, audio editing, graphic design, and do it on a battery, on something that, can sit battery, and you can have Chrome and its mini tabs open. I think that's going to be a big selling point for a lot of Windows users who were either on the fence about going to a Mac or just wanted a little bit more out of their PCs. And, you and I talk about using Edge, but we have to be realistic. There are obviously more people who are using Chrome. And whenever you heard reviews about an ARM based Windows device, that was always its Achilles heel. It's like, hey, it got good battery. It ran most things well, but it didn't have Chrome. So I put it, back in the box and shipped it away, or I put it under a bed, or I put it back on the shelf. I
Mhm.
couldn't do it without Chrome. This argument is about to go away once they're done with this. So who knows? I think, testing it now, maybe by build in about 4.5 months, Microsoft might, who knows, bring them on stage and say, hey, we've finally worked out our differences. Chrome is now a native experience on Windows ARM. Go ahead and buy your next Windows ARM device because we'll have everything you need.
And I will stress one more time, it is I have done I've only got the one device. I do not have the Surface on ARM device. Can't wait to get something powered by ARM and Microsoft to see what that's like. The Robo Incala is not a flagship brand, but they do produce a nice product. I have tested it very thoroughly this week, I believe, and it is a remarkable performance difference. And I use that word freely. You can easily feel the difference. You can see the difference in your battery life. And I'm not going to say anything bad about the Robo Color, but I would like to think that the genuine Microsoft Surface ARM powered devices might be a little more optimized, maybe than a third party device might be. So I've got high hopes for where this is going to go.
Well, I mean, to your point, the robocalla came out before all of this NPU
Yeah,
AI
it
stuff
did.
was in existence. So I think by the very nature of software and these added processors into the chip itself should give Microsoft the edge. But who knows? There's also probably going to be a premium for that kind of stuff. But either way, we are set to see a evolution of Windows and evolution of Microsoft's hardware design and its operating system in like the next few months, people. So stay tuned. Like Windows and PCs are about to get fun again.
It's going to be a good spring.
Yeah, I think so. With that being said, we're going to move on to a big topic, which is Microsoft's Q2 fiscal year 24 earnings. They reported those Wednesday, I want to say. And Microsoft made about 62 billion in revenue in Q2, which is a healthy increase about of 18% year over year. And they brought in about 21.9 billion in net income. And that reflects about a 33% increase. So investors were super happy about this quarter in particular. And ironically, this is typically everyone else's slow quarter if you're a hardware salesperson kind of thing. Uh, no, I take that back. It is the reverse, especially if you're Apple, because you're selling stuff during the winter time. So if you're a software company, this is your slow point. So Microsoft was able to kind of push against that. Investors seem pleased with it. I think their stock rose about $1.08 during the once the announcement was released. That means that they went from about 405 to about 409 as far as shares were concerned. I think overall their dollar per stock or whatever is about $2.93, and that was as the close of that day. I think they're still pretty high, and this is also this earnings comes out right after they hit the $1 trillion mark, and that was based on kind of floating the news about Activision Blizzard and the release of employees or whatnot. Unfortunately, so they went from 3 trillion to even more good news. I don't know where they're sitting at as of today or at the exact moment, but I mean they are well within a comfortable position, having reported what they did. Some of the breakdowns for those who are interested in it. Despite the launch of the Surface Laptop Studio 2 and the Surface Laptop Go 3, devices and hardware was one of their weakest points, because it falls under their more personal computing, which also was just kind of stagnant as an entire business model for the company. And again, I think most of that was weighed down by hardware in specific. Uh, but again, as we mentioned, if rumors hold true, that they might have a bounce back effect, especially if they launch these devices earlier in the year. Um, like we were rumored to have a commercial version of the Surface Pro. I think Surface Laptop 5 and the Surface Pro 9 with these new 14th generation Intel chips coming out probably in the next month or whatnot. So that could give Microsoft a bump as more commercial or more businesses buy those as fleet devices. And then in, I think, late summer, we're going to get an announcement for the fancy new uh, Windows on ARM devices and the 14th gen chip versions of the new hardware designs for the Surface Laptop, Surface Pro, and potentially Surface Laptop Studio as well. So come the winter, when everyone's buying new devices or whatnot, we get the full account for anybody who bought back to school devices. Maybe this time, the same time next year, that this device's revenue will be up. Um, but I mean, that hardware is what we enjoy, but where Microsoft makes their bread and butter is revenue in their productivity and business processes, which was about 19.2 billion. It's about a 13% increase. Office commercial products are up about 15%. That's your, Office 365, Microsoft 365 subscriptions. LinkedIn increased its revenue by 9% as well. Dynamic products and cloud services were up about 21%. And revenue in intelligent cloud, again, that's their biggest moneymaker. One of their biggest drivers is Azure or whatnot, which is that I think they brought in about 25.9 billion, and it's up about 20%, which is still impressive. Again, we're not getting the 75 and 65% increases we did a couple of years ago, but 20% growth year over year is still very healthy for the company. There were server products and cloud services that were up 22% as far as revenue is concerned. So again, Azure still taking big chunks out of the market, even despite it still being in second place to AWS. As I mentioned, revenue and personal computing, which is Xbox, Windows OEM, um, Surface hardware, search. All those were all combined in the same business, and that was $16.9 billion in revenue, and it was about an increase of about 19%. So, like I said, it was the lowest of them, but it's still pretty high. Xbox content and services increased about 61%. It had a big shoot up. And again, this is why it looks like better than it actually is for that division, is because they accounted for all the Activision Blizzard stuff. And once you did all the accounting or whatnot, they still had a 61% revenue increase for the whole business because of that. We'll see what happens after they tallied out severance packages and everything or whatnot for everyone who's leaving the company, what their final taxes are for this acquisition or whatnot. So expect that number to come back down in the next couple quarters or whatnot. Search and news and advertising revenue, which included traffic acquisition costs, increased about 8%. So Bing Search is still doing well, even though Copilot was ripped away from it as far as branding is concerned. Microsoft returned at the end of the day $8.4 billion to shareholders in the form of shares repurchased and dividends for this second quarter. What some of their warnings were for the future were competition in the AI market, which again they tried to get out ahead of, but Google's finding their feet. IBM has been in the sector for a while. We'll see what they do with it. Chipset makers as well, and how they can push Windows OEM licensing and revenue, despite PC sales sort of slumping. There again, we're all hoping that it's hit its bottom, and you can either just stay where you're at or slightly go up, but it doesn't collapse or fall any further than that. So that's Microsoft's earnings. Like I said, good stuff. The total takeaway is that cloud still remains its biggest revenue driver right now, most steady one as well. They made a lot of investments in AI, and this new version of Copilot Pro should be something they can tally up, I believe, in next quarter's revenue. So we'll see if they can finally figure, if they're one of the first companies to figure out a way to monetize it successfully, and what that could lead for in the future of other developed AI services and products that they come up with. Do you have any thoughts about the company's earnings before I jump to the competitors real quick?
Just a quick one. I'm looking at the slide that you had put up here and while you were talking, and something came to mind to me. I go back. I'm old school. I go back to Microsoft DOS 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then we had Windows 3.1, and then for me, the modern computing age started about Windows 95. It was called Windows Chicago in their beta program, and that was really the first time that I was part of the beta program, the beta news group, and really got an idea of what Microsoft was, what they were about, what they could be. And as you were reading this and going through the various divisions, and I have felt this ever since AI really caught on. I feel like this is the modern day version of what the old Microsoft used to be. Because when we were in computing back then, everybody looked to Microsoft for that leadership. What are we going to do, Microsoft? Where are we going to go? Lead us in the productivity part. Lead us to the next. I don't want to say change in computing, but how are we going to do this? And I feel like Microsoft is leading the way because we've got AI that's out there. They're doing that in the software point of things. They're doing that in the office productivity suites. That's where Microsoft has made its bread and butter. I'm the one that used Microsoft Word on a Mac for the first time, if that tells you how far back I go. Um, and I feel like this is what we're doing again. We're reinventing the way we compute, the way we process information here in 2024. Microsoft is leading the way, and as usual, the hardware division falls last on the earnings sheet because even 20 years ago, they had MSN hardware products, they had rebranded networking products, they had rebranded modems even before they thought about making a PC. They always had a little hardware out there. They've still got hardware out there, but it was always a complement to their software. And I think what you see in the earnings statement, we'll see how things bounce back or what's going to happen when these new devices come out because I think a lot of people are going to buy these devices just like I did in the late 90s, early 2000s. Curiosity is going to sell some devices this time around. And hey, like you just mentioned, having the efficient CPU, the efficient software, getting that battery life. Some people are going to go buy that product that's got that Microsoft license on it because it is more efficient. Do they need that product? Maybe not. Maybe they can live without it. But because it's more efficient, they're going to put out the credit card. I know I'm going to. I'm going to be honest about it. And we are lucky enough sometimes to get review units from some of these folks. I'm probably going to put down the credit card and go buy something just out of simple curiosity of what is it? Where are we? And I think a lot of people are going to do that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. Uh, just quickly moving on, so we can get to some more robust conversations. We will put in comparison that Alphabet slash Google's revenues grew about 13%, up to about 86 billion when they reported theirs. The quarter was also their final quarter, so it's the final quarter of year 2023. Microsoft does theirs a bit weirder. But in their statement, they said they were pleased with the ongoing strength in search and the growing contribution from YouTube and the cloud. Um, this is under Pichai talking. Each of these is already benefiting our AI investments and innovations as we enter the Gemini era. The best is yet to come. So they're following suit with Microsoft, betting heavily on AI. The quarter, let's see, Google's brought in about, I think their income was about 20.7 billion on revenue. Um, and then they brought, oh, I'm sorry, their net income was 20.7 billion on 86.3 billion in revenue, which again ends in the December 31st, 2023. Uh, their revenue from Google subscription platforms and devices grew about 18.5% to about $10.8 billion for the quarter, and Google Cloud revenues jumped about 20% to about 9.2 billion. So as Microsoft is moving, Google Cloud is following right behind them. They aren't to be left out of the conversation when we talk about cloud services and platforms. They're still very much in this dogfight. 65 point I think you and I talked about this off mic, but 65.5 billion of the company's revenues, which accounts for about 76% of the company's total revenue, came from advertising, with Google Search contributing 48 billion. YouTube ads delivered 9.2 billion, and the Google Advertising Network added another 8.3 billion. Overall, Google's advertising business grew about 10% year over year, which is, I guess, recouping some of the loss that they had. They had heights of Google's advertising closer to 80% a few years back. So they figured out a way to remonetize us and everything else on the internet. Now we'll get into a discussion about how they plan to do that with Gemini coming aboard when we start talking about their creative tools in a little bit. Just to put a cherry on top of all these earnings discussions, for those of you who are the fanboys of Windows and versus Apple, you might get a little Schadenfreude knowing that Apple's earnings disappointed a bit, relatively speaking. Don't bring out the parade just yet. But Apple reported net income of 39.9 billion, which is a lot, on the revenues of 119.6 billion. So they still made a ton of money. It's just the super rich that have their stocks weren't as impressed as they have been in the most recent quarter. The revenues didn't grow at all year over year. Even worse, Apple indicated the iPhone sales would underwhelm in the current quarter, despite these new titanium phones and lighter things or whatnot. So it's time for them to kind of figure out how to keep investors from pulling out so drastically. I believe on the call, Tim Cook says, as we look ahead, we'll continue to invest in technologies that will shape the future. That includes artificial intelligence, buzzword that Apple has refused to mention all year, where we continue to spend a tremendous amount of time and effort, and we're excited to share details of our ongoing work in that space later this year. So some kind of AI announcement later on. Our MO, if you will always have been to work and then talk about work, and not to get out in front of ourselves. And so we're going to hold that. We're going to hold ourselves to that as well. But we have got some things that we're incredibly excited to talk about, and we'll be talking about later this year. So again, some kind of AI announcement that they refused to join the crowd with when everyone else was doing it last year. You and I again talked about this off mic about how it's interesting that they were all gung ho and they've been pushing for their VR headset while everyone was talking about AR, and they've kind of AI, while they've also abandoned their own versions of AR VR mixed reality years ago. So maybe Apple's pivoting much quicker than we've given them credit for. Who knows?
Maybe they are,
Uh,
but they're always. This is. I think some of this is, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think
no,
this
no,
is
you're good.
typical Apple in a way. They're always a little late to the party, and
Mhm.
but in their defense, yes, I'm going to defend Apple for just a minute here.
Boo!
When they are late to the party on a lot of things, they generally get it right when they arrive to the party. They get it right for most of their audiences, which is what keeps that revenue number where the investors want it. So here is my late to the party advice to Apple. 2 words. You did say iPhone sales were down. So fold it. That's simple. Fold it. And I think you'll see, then there's the argument of, will that hurt iPad sales? I don't know, but I think we can all agree the iPhone is the main device. I think people are a little, I don't want to say tired, they're worn out and aggravated that the iPhone hasn't had any drastic changes in the past few years that are necessarily user facing. So I think it's time to reinvent the iPhone, and if they call it the iPhone, I will lose it, folks.
Hey, you just gave him the idea, though.
I
You
would,
just said fold it. What do you think they're going to call it?
well, I would
It's
hope
going to be
somebody.
the iFold Pro. Try saying that 5 times real fast.
Well, I hope somebody in the Apple marketing department is a little smarter than me and has already come up with what they're going to call
You're arresting it, sir. They're
it.
going to keep it simple and keep us all scratching our heads like, why was this the choice? With that being said, we're going to move on to where everyone else is at currently and not where Apple is hoping to be by the end of the year. And that is pre-generative AI. Um, we know that Microsoft has its uh, image creator. I think they redubbed it to Microsoft Designer. I think it's what it's called now,
Yeah.
or Copilot Designer, whatever it was. They took the being part out of it, and that's just professional creator or create design tool. But Google just is now testing theirs in their test kitchen. They launched their new AI image generating, and it expands on the Gemini Pro availability in Bard. So I think they have text to image, text to create music with their music FX, and they have Bard. And I think they have one other uh, FX slash pre-generative AI platform or service. Um, as I think Google writes it down, Image FX is Google's new text to image generator, which is available in the company's AI test kitchen alongside Music FX and Text FX, two other generative AI experiments designed for the experimentation and creativity. Uh, Image FX lets you create images with a simple prompt, text prompt. For those of you who have been using Designer or Copilot Image Creator, um, or Midjourney or any of the tools similar to that, it's very familiar. It's very familiar look and feel. Uh, I will give it the edge over Copilot, visually speaking. As far as the prompts are concerned, I tried it out. It is very locked down, which we'll get into uh, why Google's coming out of the gate lockdown in a second. But for those of you who want to try it out, you can go ahead and head over to, I think it's image, or you can just type in, I believe, image FX, all in one word, and it should be one of the first two links, I believe. It's pretty cool. If you know the way to prompt image creators, then you're a step ahead of everyone else. But like I said, it's in the test kitchen. It's not actually available uh, to the general public. You will need your email, Google email address, in order to get it going and get it started. Um, Any thoughts on that? I know you haven't tried it out yet, but what do you think about them kind of expanding this?
Well, I think everybody kind of knew it was coming. Microsoft has got theirs. There's one by Adobe called Firefly for those that are in the Adobe cloud. So I think it kind of fits for the fact that, we could expect, Google's not going to be left out here. Now, as you mentioned, it's a little more locked down than some of the other options out there. And again, I think that kind of fits the Google way. I mean, they did, push the idea of safe search there for quite some time and still do on occasion. So I think, having it locked down, protecting copyrights, protecting things that, not every age group wants to see on the internet is a good thing. I'm going to get
Yeah.
in there this weekend and try it out and kind of see how it compares to the Copilot version, Microsoft Designer, and compare it to Firefly because I have used both for some content production and used some for what we put on the website as well.
Yeah, we can't forget about the one of the ones that started it all, which is OpenAI's Dolly. I think it's on Dolly 3 now, and I
Hmm.
believe that's what Microsoft Designer's basically a skin over. It's what it's using. So, for those of you who may not feel like you're getting enough from um, Image FX, you can try, like I said, Dolly. You can try. Would you call it Fire?
Adobe Firefly, and I will throw in since you said if you don't think you're getting enough from one, try another. They are different. That's the thing that I'm noticing in my day-to-day work. They are very different, and it's hard to explain. The Copilot one seems more realistic to me than the Firefly one. The Firefly one reminds me of an artist that sits down at an easel with paintbrushes and designs your image, whereas the one with Copilot seems to be a more realistic image. Like, for example, you want people on a couch playing Xbox that look excited. It will give you people sitting on a couch playing Xbox. You can see the controller, you can see the headset that look excited. Whereas you take that same prompt and you type it into Firefly, most of the time you get a good image back, but it's more like a painted image type thing. So they
Yeah, I
are
mean,
vastly different.
and to that overall discussion, there are several different tools you can try to kind of get the exact image you want, but that speaks to the audience that is there, the audience that they're catering to. There are people who are using these things that enough so that there are several different options. So, as we continue to talk about AI and what the future could hold, we're starting to see that at least people are interested in creating images. Now, they need to pay the artists that they pull these images from fairly. That the same thing with the music that they're creating and for all of the text prompts that they're using. Like these people still need to be paid. We perhaps need Congress to enforce something, some rules set aside by the general tech public, but people are interested in creating images. So much so that Microsoft had to come on CNBC, I believe, earlier this week to talk about what happened last weekend before last, which is the Taylor Swift kerfuffle. There was an incident with that involved the pop singer having deep fake porn images created and then dispersed on X slash formerly known as Twitter. Uh, and they were using, unfortunately, Microsoft Designer to do so. The details were that it was reported by 404 Media that users of 4chan and Telegram were coordinating both those platforms on image prompts that they could share amongst each other in order to create these images of Taylor Swift and then distribute them on X. I believe at the time before it was taken down, the same images, had been seen 27 million times, unfortunately. So she's getting involved and trying to figure out who's the culprit and who's involved and who could be sued. Microsoft, for their own defense, basically came out and said that they're putting up new guardrails, new safety uh, filters in so that you can no longer do that. And I believe 404 Media confirmed independently. They weren't asked by Microsoft to do it. They just said that what was previously used no longer works or provides an image. Uh, Unfortunately, before they put up the safeguards, you didn't have to actually be explicit about the images you wanted to create. That's how low or no bar there was for creating images prior to this. You could basically just throw out a name. You could even misspell the name. I think that was specifically how they got around it. Is they misspelled her name and then just typed in whatever else they wanted. I don't know what the exact specific prompts were, that those weren't released. But it wasn't very hard to create the image. So Microsoft, I think we were quoted in the interview saying that they obviously have to do better and they have to be quick about it. They said, I think Satya Nadella said, I think we all benefit when the online world is a safe world. And so I don't think anyone would want an online world that is completely not safe for both content creators and content consumers. So therefore, I think it behooves us to move fast on this. Like I said, they did. 404 Media confirmed it. Um, we'll have to see if it can get tripped up again. What the next big AI thing is, because like we're barreling into all of the questions versus having had time to kind of prepare for it.
This is
You think?
and I have mentioned it a couple times. This is the negative part of AI, just as it was the negative part of search. When search become a thing, I remember what age some family members were and friends, and watching them kind of snicker in the corner about things that they were looking up and things that they were discovering. And it didn't take the Yahoos of the world. This is even before Google. It didn't take the Yahoos of the world long to figure out how to censor that stuff and put it where it needed to be. And then MSN came along, they did the same thing, and then Google introduced what they called safe search, and they did the same thing as well. And I think we're going to have to go through this same learning curve with AI. I think, I'm going to be honest. We are in the insider program for Windows. This Copilot button had set in the taskbar of my PCs, even all of my review PCs, for quite some time. I had never clicked it, I have never used it. To your point, things have greatly improved even over the last few weeks to the point that I'm going to have to retract some of the things I said 6 months ago. I think AI might be the new way of getting information. It's going to become a good supplement to the traditional search engine. Now, how these companies mesh that together, how revenue breaks out, totally different discussion for a totally different day. But I think we've got to go through these learning curves to keep people from typing things in, not just images, copyrights. We've got to figure out how to deal with copyrights. We've got to, as you mentioned, we've got to figure out how to pay people when their content is used, you know, or allow people to take their content out of AI. We don't have that system yet that I'm aware of. We've kind of just said, look, here's the internet, here's AI. We'll pull it all together for you and give you what you're looking for. That's the same thing search did back in the 90s. We had to trim it, we had to form it. We're going to have to do the same thing with AI, I believe.
Yeah, and I think those filters and that formation that you're talking about will come once it gets monetized. When people have to start paying for stuff, so to speak, um, then they'll probably self-limit. Same way with Midjourney, like they when you start paying for it, you don't get as creative, I suppose. You're like, yeah, I have to focus what I'm spending my money on or my time. To that point, we're going to wrap this whole podcast up with some preliminary thoughts on the reviews of the Apple Vision Pro. Neither one of us have gotten it because it's crazy expensive. And I personally don't see the use case for it just yet, but we can rely on people like MKPhD and Nilay Patel from The Verge. I forget who the reviewer was from Engadget, but they've gotten it. I will lean on Nilay's review in particular because I really like that one. I thought it was very thorough, and give you just some quick what he thought was good and what he thought was bad. As far as the good was concerned, and he said the display is a technical marvel with the best video pass through yet. Hand and eye tracking are a leap forward. You can work seamlessly with Apple's ecosystem if you are someone who's deep in the Apple ecosystem. It's fun to put windows all over the place, which is what he said. The very bad part of it is that it's crazy expensive. The video pass-through is still video pass-through at the end of the day and can be blurry. Hand and eye tracking can be inconsistent and frustrating, even though it's a step ahead as far as how advanced it is. Personas are uncanny and somewhat terrifying, which is what we were talking about as far as video conferencing or whatnot. And it's pretty lonely in there, is what he says. And I think he ends his review with the existential question of, do you want your Apple Pro or Apple Vision Pro constantly tracking your hands, videoing your hands, recording your hands? Because that's what this thing does. I think beyond all of the glitz and glamour of like, hey, you can put windows up and you can have an immersive video in front of you. There are cameras on the external of this thing that are recording constantly and processing constantly, because this is not AR. This isn't like the HoloLens where you have cameras projecting on the inside of the vision digital imagery. These are cameras recording the outside world and then feeding it back into you, because it's at its base a VR headset. And what happens when apps want to start accessing those cameras? That is something I think that not a lot of people have really gotten into when they're talking about this being the next biggest thing for spatial computing is what they call it. Uh, so, what are your thoughts early on about this? About some of these reviews? Which ones did
I,
you like? Did not like?
I'm kind of on the same train you are here. I liked what I don't want. I want to make sure I say his name right. It's M. Thank you.
Okay.
MKBHC. Thank you. I could not. I enjoyed his style of review. I think he was very fair. I liked the way he held, to get detailed. He held the headset out there and says, "Look, this thing is heavy on this side. It's light on this side." And then he explained the experience about being able to see through the lens, if you will, to see what was in front of you, the real world experience. And he was fair with the battery as well, about how big the battery was, that he expected the battery to get hot, that, you know, the experience was there. And then you had the I Justines of the world out there that were, this is Apple, this is great because it has the Apple name. Look at what you can do with it. And I'm not going to discredit her feelings. She is an Apple fan. I get that. So Apple could hand her a necklace with a Apple charm on it, and to her, it's a big deal. I understand that.
Now,
But go ahead.
I think just to give her a bit of credit, maybe if you hand it to like the Renee Ritchies of the world or something like she, while a huge Apple fan, admitted, and there's no denying that, she's also, I think she's starting to try and brand herself as a positive reviewer. Like I don't,
Hmm.
she speaks highly of the service devices. She speaks highly of Samsung device. Like she speaks highly of devices she gets. I don't think she tries to be a negative reviewer. It's rare that I've ever seen her give any device. Now, again, this may just come down to the devices she chooses to review versus saying like, "Hey, I got this review," because there are some reviewers who do this. So they will not give a negative review. They just won't give a public review of it, an omission of negativity, so to speak. So she may get devices that she's like, you know what, this isn't good, but I'm not going to trash it, so I'm just not going to talk about it. She tends to just be positive about everything. Now, very positive about Apple devices. So that, to your point, I just want to make sure that we're not, I don't people say like, oh, you're out there bashing her because she's an Apple fan. Like
No,
it's
no,
it's
no.
fun to be a fan. It's fine to be a fan. It's great to be a fan. If you can find a fandom, go, to your heart's content, go full forward with it. I just want to make sure that I give paint her in a fair light that again, most everything I've seen her do has been pretty positive. Like she's positive about Roomba, she's positive about floor projectors, she's positive. She's just a positive person. So I expected the Vision Pro to get a positive review from her.
And I agree with you, and like I said, I'm not gonna, bash Justine in any way. I just think when you look at these reviews, you have to, at least I do, I take into account who my reviewer is,
Bingo.
and
Yep.
and what review I watch first.
Mhm.
And for me, when I take a look at the headset and what people have put out, I still go back on everything I have said so far. Where is the consumer usage to make Kareem and I, that don't make a lot of money, take a nice chunk of our income and go buy the Apple Vision Pro headset. That is still, even after reviews are still coming out, I get that this is awesome. I get that this is new in spatial computing. I get that it integrates well with the Apple ecosystem. I understand all that. Where is the breakthrough experience that makes Kareem and I go, Kareem, buddy, I'm going to the Apple store this weekend because I want to do XYZ with the Apple headset? Let's even throw expense out of it. Let's say the Apple Vision Pro was $500, which is the same price as the Meta Quest 3. So, the Meta Quest 3 is considered the affordable AR VR headset. So, I'm focused on experience. I'm also focused on how you have to use it. I saw some reviewers say that battery life was just atrocious, that it was not good. So, what makes me, let's talk in Apple terms for a minute because I'm guessing that most people that buy this headset have got a MacBook and an iPhone. I'm going to make that leap. What makes the user put down the MacBook, put down the iPhone and go, it's almost like putting on a Halloween suit. And I'm not saying that the VR headset is a suit, but you have to prepare to use it. You have to put it on. You have to strap the battery. You have to turn it on. And I'm sure there's, you got to get to where you want to go type of experience. What makes you want to change your experience to use the headset? And I'm going to be fair. The MetaQuest, I feel similar about it too. I have one. I have two of them actually. I use it for one thing, for that one VR racing experience. So I want some of you, if anybody happens to see this podcast that has purchased it, I want to hear from a consumer, not a reviewer. Why did you purchase it? And what do you intend to do with it? What made you put down that $3,500? And that's not, we've not heard that yet that I have seen. What made the
No,
consumer, Kareem or myself, put the credit card down and say, I want a Vision Pro? That's what I'm waiting to hear.
well, I mean, to your point, at least the MetaQuest is I don't know if it's marketed as, but it's colloquially known as a gaming thing. Like you're going to game on, it, you're gonna
It
have
is.
a fun time. They still haven't been able to pivot towards like, oh, you're gonna do stuff productivity with, which Apple hasn't marketed theirs as a gaming thing. It's more of a consumption device, which again is sort of like what the iPad started off as, until it became the iPad Pro, which is sort of like I guess deconstruct a computer, so to speak. So maybe 10 years from now, the Vision Pro will be that. Um, but what I'm having issue with, particularly with this thing, and not because it's not made by Microsoft, because again, Microsoft made the Hololens, which is AR, true AR.
Mhm.
This is VR as a stopgap to AR, which I believe what Microsoft or what Apple wants to do. Even though Apple's had, I think, what is it, the Hololens in its entirety is about 7 years old between the two devices. They've had 7 years to figure out AR, but they went with VR slash pass through with via multiple cameras. My point is, at the end of the day, how are people going to make money off of this? Because that's the use case. The
Mhm.
way people make money off of their iPhones, they've created entire businesses, they created platforms on TikTok, things like that, because more so than the iPad, even though the iPad's more capable. It's because it's the device that they have on them. It's got amazing cameras, it's got great speakers, it's got great microphones. When it comes to recordings, it has all these filters and apps that work for it. So when you're, say you're an influencer or you're a YouTuber or you're whatnot, you have that one device that can gather all that information, create information, edit information on that thing, or you can bring it over to your your MacBook. This thing just takes that information and puts it on the screen in front of you. Like, at what point or how are you going to start, creating things with the Vision Pro? I don't know if you're going to be able to because it's such a solitary experience. And to that point, we were talking about teams being on here, and even just getting work done in general. And it seems like it's kind of doing this weird thing where they have this personas, I think, or whatever, these like weird watercolored versions, CGI versions of people when they're in conferencing versus like just being able to call somebody and see, like you and I see our full bodies and HD and expressions and things like that. They have this like weird video replica of it, and it does like from like, I think it's from like the shoulders up. It doesn't really record hands very well in this sort of mode. Like, it seems like we have all the tools ready for us, and we were sitting here asking about how AI is going to, how people are going to use AI. And I can already see people monetizing AI, creating images, people who are, if you're a writer and you're having trouble writing a subplot for an episode on a show that you're on, you can use AI to get that information to help you get over that writer's block. If you're writing in Copilot Pro, if you're using Copilot Pro to analyze data much faster than you could have manually, like, say someone sends you a bundle of macros, Excels, and saying, hey, I need you to decipher where are we losing the money on our whole shipping trajectory. Like, we're shipping across the nation. Where is it costing us the most and why? Which zip codes, stuff like that. You can take AI and have it. You can type that in. Just type in the exact request that your boss is giving you. Have it a full report created for yourself that you can go present. That's an immediate, like, return on investment. And I think that's why a lot of companies start doing AI. And you can do Copilot Pro for $30, I think, at the most, $20 or free at the minimum. Vision Pro is $3,500, and we have no idea how people are going to make money with this thing. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to keep this alive. Like, people can make money off the iPhone. They can make money with the iPhone. Same thing to a certain extent with the iPad, definitely with the Mac. This thing
Show
is, yeah, go ahead.
show me, and this is a question slash point. I agree with every word you just said. So here's my take to Apple. You have a device. You say it's cutting edge, whether it's consumer, whether it's business, industrial, doesn't matter. So to Apple, to people that have purchased the Vision Pro, to businesses that are maybe taking a look at it for whatever use case, what industrial aspect, what medical aspect, what educational aspect, you know, maybe here's a good one, training pilots, flight simulators. What experiences can someone go purchase the Vision Pro for? And I usually use the term make money or resale use of the Vision Pro to make money for it. That I just don't see that, folks. And I know I'm kind of hung on that a little bit. I totally get that. I don't see it. And to your point, we talked about it earlier. Microsoft 365 now supports the Apple Vision Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You and I, we get up every day, we write stories, we're constantly searching. Maybe we could put on that Vision Pro to do that. But that afternoon, we need to use Slack for something. We need to be able to go between Slack and Teams.
Mm-hmm.
We need to go between two apps, one in the ecosystem, one that's not in the Vision Pro ecosystem. So there's still a choice there for that user to make. Do they keep the headset on their desk and take it off and on 50 times a day and go between the VR experience and the keyboard? I'm not going to do that. I'm a productive person, and I like to believe that most people are going to do what makes them most productive. Now, that does fall back on the software developers as well to adopt the Vision Pro and be willing to put their software on the Vision Pro, but we've had two different podcasts where we've covered two different stories. Netflix said no. Spotify said no. There was another one that's not coming to mind right now in the entertainment industry that said no. Microsoft, I've heard say yes with the 365. We just talked about it. I've not heard, and maybe you have, a whole lot of yeses out there. We have adopted our software into the Vision Pro. I feel like you're buying the hardware that is right now, maybe that changes, lacking the experience that has to
Yeah.
go with it.
Before we get the Apple fans on us, there are about 600 apps that are supposed to be launching today with it. So that's that's not an insignificant number. Uh, but who knows? There might just be a bunch of calculators and flashlights or whatever. But there are 600 apps coming with the Vision Pro. We will wrap this up with all of our questions because we're going to have more. We're going to see more people use it. More people are going to give us more nuanced negatives and positives. Having used it for more than a few weeks, we're going to get people who have going to have 3-month reviews, 6-month long-term reviews. When WWDC comes around, we'll see, maybe at that point we'll have figured out, maybe they'll figure out faster than Microsoft figured it out and put these in front of, like you said, training people on how to fix jet engines or indoor piping or, things like that. Again, this isn't AR. This is what, spatial computing is what they're calling it, but it's basically a beefed up VR headset that has an excellent pass through. But God forbid one of those cameras breaks and the whole thing is out of whack. Uh, but it's Apple's foray into this. I just want to say that I think companies like Google, Amazon, who's investing in AI, IBM, Salesforce, Microsoft, all of these companies are pivoting this way because this is a one-to-one interaction between
Mhm.
what you sell the customer and what benefit they get from it versus the Vision Pro, which is a much longer term one. And we've seen companies try this long-term arc, and it just doesn't really pan out for them, not in the consumer aspect that they think it is. Now, the Meta Quest is selling gangbusters, but it's selling more so as a gaming device at $500. So, it's relatively cheap comparatively speaking. It's more of a console in your face versus a computer on your face. And maybe that's where the market is. Maybe that's where the Vision Pro just becomes. It becomes the Windows PC for gamers, while there's the full breadth of PC marketing for everybody else. Maybe they notch their 9-10% of spatial computing on your face, and everything else just remains AI laced. AI in your phones, AI on your screens, AI in your fridge, AI in your Roomba, AI in your baby's crib, and AI becomes the overall computing method. But with that being said, let's wrap it up. Where can people find you at?
Guess what? I'm still on Threads, folks. 2 weeks in a row.
There we go.
David PAJ 1978. I'm hanging out on Threads. I'm also hanging out on that other platform with two names, Twitter X. You can find me over there as well. And you can also find us. I'll throw this out there. I don't think we've put this out there. What Microsoft Unboxed on Facebook. We're dropping our stories there as we post them. So you're welcome to go pick us up over there as well.
You can't find me anywhere, folks. I'm going to go live in the Apple Vision Pro. I'm going to be by myself, watching my lonely videos as these guys in this dystopian video is concerned. I'm kidding. You can find me at Mindhead1 on Twitter /X. You can find me at Kareem Anderson on Threads or Instagram. I'm on TikTok under Kareem Anderson, I believe, as well, but I don't post anything. I just watch and laugh. So there's no real interactions there. You can also go to our website, as we mentioned, MicrosoftUnboxed.com. We will be having, I believe, a guest on soon once they are healthy, but we do have a new writer. I think you guys all know Arif. He's helping us out these days. So if you love his writing, his content, you can find it there at Microsoft, his reviews. I believe he's got the X1 Fold. So if you want to hear about that and its quirkiness compared to the Vision Pro, I'm sure he's got a write-up coming soon. We also have write-ups on a bunch of other stuff like monitors and gaming PCs and a bunch of other things. So stick to the new website to kind of get all that information. Well, thank you for joining us for another week, hanging out with us for as long as you did. Now go out and enjoy your weekend. Go touch grass. Have fun. We'll see you next week.
Take care, folks. Have a good weekend.